birds and the butterflies and thought that had to be designed. What Darwin did was to show how it could all have come about without any designer, not by chance, it's important to understand that, but by what he called natural selection, which is very much not a chance process. But it does explain how you can get elegance and beauty and the illusion of design without any real designer.
Charles Darwin, the 19th century British naturalist, is a massively important figure in the history of science. He changed the way we think about the origins of life on this planet through his theories of evolution and natural selection.
It was really a staggering achievement because everybody was so used to the idea that complicated things that looked as though they'd been designed had been designed.
One of Professor Dawkins' most well-known books is called The Blind Watchmaker. In it, he argues against the ideas of an 18th century Christian writer called William Paley, who thought that the world must have been created by God because it is so well made, as beautifully and intricately designed as any clock.
Paley used the analogy of a watchmaker. He said, suppose you were walking along a heath and you stumbled upon a watch that somebody had left on the ground, and you picked it up and you opened it and you saw cogwheels and springs and screws and nuts, and everything pointed to its being designed, and you naturally conclude, yes, it was designed, and it was designed to tell the time. By the same token, Paley said, you would say the same thing of a living creature, or of an eye, or of a knee, any part of a living creature. In both cases, it looks as though it's been designed. There had to be a watchmaker in the case of the watch. There had to be a divine watchmaker in the case of the living creature. So the blind watchmaker is Darwinian natural selection, the alternative explanation that doesn't explain watches, but does explain living creatures.
This worldview that Darwin gives us, it can seem a bit bleak, can't it? That we're just these biological organisms blindly going towards our mortal deaths.
I don't think that it is bleak, as a matter of fact. I think that we make our own purposes in life. I have an extremely happy life, and I laugh a lot, and I'm surrounded by people who laugh a lot. We know we're going to die, and we think that's the end of it, but that makes us all the more eager to live life to the full while we've got it. And there is a kind of nobility in standing up and facing up to a truth, even if it is bleak, and living on in spite of it and deciding this is the only life we've got. Let's make the most of it.
Questions about the existence or non-existence of God have troubled and excited people for centuries, and they still do. Alistair McGrath is a professor of theology in the University of Oxford. He converted to Christianity from atheism, and he still writes books about it. He's invited me to join him for a walk across the meadows in Oxford to chat about his views on the future of atheism. So look, Alistair, as a Christian theologian, why are you so interested in atheism?
Well, I think atheism is extremely important. I mean, if you look at the history of the world in the last 200 years, atheism really has played a big role in shaping the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, all these things. And so it's very important to ask, where do these ideas come from? Why do people find them attractive? Are they right?
Do you have more of a personal interest in this, though?
Well, I used to be an atheist myself, so I'm always interested in going back and re-examining these questions, because I think none of us are really absolutely sure about what we believe. It's always good to keep these questions open, to keep asking, is this really right?
So who are you trying to challenge the most, perhaps yourself or your readers?
Well, I think I'm trying to challenge myself, but also my readers, because I think this is intellectually fascinating. You know, looking at this question, is there a God? If there is, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
So I think keeping this question alive is a very important issue for me personally, and I know for many others as well.
I think that's something atheists and religious believers agree on.
Yes, I think that's right.
We've been heading for Godstow Abbey on the edge of Oxford, once an important place of worship, which has been a ruin for centuries. Alistair, when I come to this place, I think of the ruin and decline of religion, so why have you brought me here?
Well, I think certainly this place does speak to me of the passing of an age in which religion was dominant, certainly in England. But also I think says to me something like this, that all worldviews have their peaks and then they decline. And in many ways this building speaks to me of the fact that both religion and atheism rise and fall, and therefore it raises some very interesting questions. Who's going to rise, who's going to fall in the future? As I look at history, I see atheism beginning to enjoy a golden age in 1789 with the French Revolution, and then I see it really peaking and then falling away like the Berlin Wall in 1989. And maybe the ruins of the Berlin Wall actually remind us that all our systems have their day, whether they are religious or indeed anti-religious.
Most people just kind of lost interest in religion. That's the main thing. They're neither passionately atheist nor passionately believers. They just get on. They don't need it anymore. They don't need to have any deep beliefs about God or lack of God.
Well, I think that's a very important point, and certainly most people at most times just get on with their daily lives and don't think about these things very much. But very often a crisis will occur and they feel they need something beyond themselves which actually gives them meaning or stability, and very often that is when religion begins to come into its own. And I think actually one of the key tests for whether religion is failing is what happens at moments of crisis. What do you turn to? And I still see religion playing that critical role for people at those junctures. Many people who I know who are atheists will say something like this, that the atheist world is actually unimaginative. It lacks something that makes me want to do what Christians do when they worship. There's no oomph, there's no dynamism to it. It's actually, if I dare say it, deadly dull. And it just seems to me that actually atheists really need to get their act together and be more interesting and exciting, rather than some of the dull, plodding stuff we see in some popular atheist writing.
Well, look, let's just put it this way. I'm an atheist, and I think I've got lots of zest and enthusiasm for life and ideas. So, you know, I think that's the way of the future.
Well, I think you're a great guy, and I hope you're right for your sake. But I'm not so sure. I think that we're seeing a revival of interest in religion, but this dialogue is going to go on. So let's hope we have a good, enjoyable dialogue and see where it goes.
Well, let's see where we go.
Yes, let's go.
My name's Richard Patterson, and I work as an officiant or celebrant for humanist funerals, weddings, naming ceremonies. We call ourselves officiants at funerals and celebrants for more joyous occasions. Baby naming ceremony is often the centrepiece of a family party. At the appropriate time, I'll gather everyone together. The parents will be there with the new baby, and I will talk a little bit informally about the responsibilities of parenthood and the hopes that we have, and the fact that this is someone who's just arrived with us, who will be around for another 70, maybe 80 years, and who knows what the world will be like for them at the end of that time. And really, it's the job of the parents to set them out on the right path. And then the parents themselves will maybe they'll read a poem, or they'll say a little bit that they've prepared about the commitment that they want to make to the baby. We use a book called Seasons of Life, which is a collection, an anthology of readings and poems, because the idea of seasons, the passage of time, the passage of the year, you know, the generation of people are like the leaves that fall off the tree in autumn and they're swept away. A few hang on into the winter, much longer than the others, but then it's all cleared away by winter, and that seems to be the end of everything. But then suddenly you've got the new life of a new spring, and all that new growth is nourished by the old growth last year's and the year before. And there's very powerful symbolism in there for what happens with the humans and indeed all other species. This reading from Seasons of Life is the sort of thing that we would use at a naming ceremony for a child. For the gift of childhood, whose innocence and laughter keep the world young, we all rejoice and give thanks. May this sweet life, which we've accepted into our community of ideals and friendship, receive abundantly the blessings of health, love, knowledge and wisdom, and in its turn give back richly to the common heritage that endures from generation to generation. I think it feels religious, and people have often said to me, which church are you the minister of? And it hasn't actually dawned on them that there isn't any